Hi everyone, I'm Laurie Barth and I am a senior software engineer at Netflix, and I am so happy to be here. Thank you to Pluralsight for inviting me to talk to you all for Tech Skills Day. I have been working in the front-end space for a number of years now, and I thought to get you all excited about web applications and what you can build, we could do a fun live coding demo where we make a wish list of what Lego sets we want, because as you can tell from my background, I'm a big fan of Lego. Just a few things to get started so you know what kind of tools we're using. We're using an API called Rebrickable for all of the data, all of the Lego sets that are available, the ability to make lists, all of the functionality that we're going to put into this application. And we are doing all of this in the browser using a website called Code Sandbox, which created the React application for us, and we don't have to deal with any setup on our local machine. So without further ado, let's dive in. We're in Code Sandbox, and we see that we have an app.js file, which is where we're going to build out most of our functionality. You'll also notice a few extra files. We have an index.js file, which comes along with our React boilerplate. We have a services.js file and a styles.css file. Those two files are something I added ahead of this demo so we can move a little bit quicker. The services.js file is all of our API interactions with the Rebrickable API that I mentioned, and styles.css is adding just a little bit of styling to make our site look cooler as we build out these pieces. Let's take a look at this app.js file and some of the things that we get from this React boilerplate. The first thing to notice is that we're exporting a function called app. This is actually the root component of our React application. Think of a component like a modular piece of functionality that you can create and sort of add anything into. Then you can reuse it around your site, sort of like Lego bricks and building a full set. Inside our component, we are returning a div, an HTML element. We're able to do this because of a notation called JSX that React supports. I recommend Googling it on the side as it's a little bit more than we'll dive into today. Also notice the keyword class name. This is what React uses for passing class styles. Inside our div, we are printing hello, as we can see. So let's make that a little bit more interesting. We're going to add an H1, and inside we'll put my Lego sets. And we'll start to see some of the styles I was talking about earlier. Now let's add our own component. I've gone ahead and made us a components folder. So let's add Lego list.js. Inside, we're going to import React from React. You don't need to do this in modern React 18, but I like doing it here because if you're using an older version of React, or you just want to understand that you're not using magic, it's a nice thing to use. And inside, we're going to make a constant Lego list, which is a function. We're also going to export Lego list as default. Make note of this capital letter. This is important. Every React component needs to start with a capital letter by convention. So inside here, we're going to return a div, and for the moment, we will call it list. Nothing's happening with that right now, so inside our app component, we are going to import Lego list from /components/Lego list. And we use it just like this. And now we have a list. We're getting there. Instead of the word list, we want to render an actual list of Lego. So let's start by making use of something called useState. useState is a hook that React provides that allows us to keep track of the value of a variable. And the syntax to use it looks like this. We have a variable name. In this case, I'm going to call it myLegoSets. And a setter called setMyLegoSets. We'll see how to use both of those in just a moment. We need to import useState from React so that we can make use of it. And we're also going to give it an initial value. We want a list of Lego, so we're going to make it an empty array. Inside of our div, we can use myLegoSets, and we're going to map through them. This is helpful because it gives us another function, and it allows us to write set.name, for example, and return it. Well, that's all well and good, but myLegoSets is currently an empty array. We need to give it an actual value. That's where another hook comes in handy. This hook is called useEffect. And useEffect works as follows. It takes a function and it will run every time the values inside this array change. As it turns out, we want an empty array because we want it to run the first time this page renders. So we're going to fetch wishlist, which is one of those services that I talked about creating earlier. And that grabs a list from the Rebrickable API that I made ahead of time. As it turns out, we're still not doing anything because this is a useEffect. And the value of the fetch call that fetch wishlist is running is a promise. So when the promise returns, we need to do something with it. We have a result, and we're going to use that result to populate our Lego set. Weird. Something's still not working. Well, as it turns out, that is what we need to do. That is the structure of our return data. Every API is different, and you'll want to dive into the structure of the objects that you're returning, depending on whatever data you have. So this is a set that we get, and inside that is a set with a name. That's pretty ugly. Seems like we can do more. This is a list of Lego, but each Lego has its own type of display properties and things that we would like to do to put it on screen. So let's make another component. We'll call this one Lego set. And we're going to do just as we did before. Import React from React and create a function called Lego set, which is a component, and export default Lego set. And now we're going to do something a little bit different. In Lego list, it's a function that doesn't need any other information from us. We're mapping through and looking at each Lego set that we have in our list. Well, if we're going to use a Lego set component to display all of this information, it can be reusable. It can work for every set, but it needs to know about the set. Components pass something called props. So we can pass ourselves a set and we can return exactly what we did before. You'll notice that I almost forgot to put these in curly braces. Every time you're using an actual value instead of the text you want to put on screen, you put them in curly braces. So let's replace this with Lego set. Thank you for the auto return code sandbox. So in here, we're going to return Lego set, and the set is going to be our set. And there we go. We're doing exactly what we were doing, but we're doing it inside a component. So let's go a step further. We have an entire set with a lot of different values. What can we do besides printing out the names of each of our sets? So the first thing to know is there's errors here that I'm not showing you, and they're there for a very good reason. Lego list is rendering a lot of components that to React all look the same. There's a Lego set and a Lego set and a Lego set and a Lego set. How does it know how to differentiate it? How does it know that the next time it renders, I want this set versus the other one, and I only changed the first one? It keeps track of the differences using a key. The key needs to be unique, and you don't want to use a random number. You want it to stay the same between renders. That means using a key that is unique to the data. In this case, the set has a set URL. And we'll use that. So now that we don't have that problem, inside our Lego set, we are going to create a nicer bit of functionality. So we have our key already, and we want to add some other information. So we have an image that we can render. We're going to add an alt tag. We'll make it the set URL, and a source, which is going to be the set image URL. We're also going to add the link to that URL. And that is where we are going to put our name. I've added a couple class names, one for Lego set and one for Lego list, which gives us some of these styles that I'd added previously. And now we have an image and a title and a link for all of our sets. Very cool. So what do we want to do next? This is a list of sets that I want, maybe some that I already have, but this feels like a read-only experience. We have state and use effect and all of this great reactive functionality that React is going to give us, so we can do more. Let's do it. We're going to start by making a search box. So we'll make a new component called searchbox.js. And we'll do what we've done before. Now that we have our search box component, we want to make a form with a nice little input text box and a button to search. This is a very common pattern. You'll see forms all over applications, and it's a nice thing to be able to do. Keep in mind that there are a lot of different ways to do this. If you have a form with more fields, I recommend using form data. The React docs are really, really good for this. But for now, it's only one field, so we're going to do it in the more HTML direct JavaScript way. So we're going to return a form, and I have a class name to make this look just a little bit nicer. Inside our form, we're going to put an input We'll add a placeholder value for search. We're going to add an ARIA label to make sure that it's accessible. A name so that our functionality can find this. And we'll close it out. And then we're going to add a button. Type equals submit so that it knows when we press this button, we're submitting this form. And we'll close that as well. Actually, you know, live coding, always keeping us on our toes. There we go. So we have a form with an input and a button. We're going to need to do more here, but as you notice, this isn't on our screen, so let's fix that. We could add it to the top of our Lego list. So let's make a div. And we'll put search box inside of that. And now we have our search box. But it doesn't do anything. In fact, it just refreshes the whole page. So inside our search box, we want to do a few things. The first is when the form submits, we should trigger an event. There are different events that you get, just like you would in HTML elements that React supports. So the event we're looking at here is on click. That means when you click this button, run this function. We're going to call our function on submit. We'll put it up here. And we don't really know what we want it to do yet. So for the moment, it's there. What we theoretically want it to do is we want it to run search. So we have a function that will search that API for Lego sets. And then we will display the results. How is this gonna work? Okay. The first thing we need to break down is we need to assign the results to these Lego lists that we have. We have our search box here, and we're rendering our Lego sets here, and we pass each of the sets, and the Lego sets get assigned here. Interestingly enough, we're going to take away our default list for the moment, and instead of setting our Lego sets there, we're going to pass this setter to our search box. Inside our search box, we can use that state that's in the component a level above. So we're going to pass set my Lego sets in, and now we can set our Lego sets to results. But results of what? We need to keep track of the state of what we're typing in this box, the same way we kept track of the state in Lego list. So let's borrow this. Okay, so we have a search term and we set a search term, but we never set a search term. We have this event called onClick on our button, which is great. In our input, we can also use events. In this case, we want to use onChange. This is going to be a function. And every time the event changes, e.target.value, which is the actual keys that are being typed into that field, they're going to save off into search term. Now, when we search sets, we'll pass that search term, and we're going to do one more thing, which is this event. We're going to prevent default, which you'll see in non-React land, but it essentially means if we click this button, we don't need to re-render the whole page. or even this component. We want to keep it around. So what should we search? Let's try light. Oh, looks like we did something wrong. Well, the problem here is that the Lego list we had before is going through the set inside the set. Remember how I said that was the shape of the data? The shape of the data that comes back from our search function isn't that. So we can remove our curly braces and try this again. And there we go. Look at all these sets. Oh, the motorized lighthouse. I want that one so much. Wouldn't it be nice if I could add it to my list? The list of Lego sets I want. As it turns out, I can. So let's add yet another component. We'll call it our wishlist button. So using a component called wishlist button, let's return a button. Add to wishlist. We want to render this theoretically every single time we see a set. So let's go inside our Lego set component so that we don't have to make this a bunch of times. And let's add wishlist button. Nice. This is working out well already, but it doesn't exactly match our styles. So let's see if we can fix that. Ta-da! So when we click on the add to wishlist button, nothing happens. What we want to do is add an event like we did before for on-click. Let's first make a function called add to wishlist that we can use every time we want to click. And on click, we will add to wishlist. But right now, add to wishlist doesn't do anything. What we want to do is add set to wishlist, which is one of our API calls. Unfortunately, this still doesn't do anything because add set to wishlist is a function that takes a set number. And right now, we don't have one. We don't know which set we want to add to a wish list because we're rendering this every time we show a set. The same way we wanted to show a key so that React knew each time we were rendering a different set, we want to be able to tell the wish list button which button this set is for. So let's go fix that. We can go into our Lego set and let's pass a set number, which is going to be set.setNum. And inside our wish list button, we will take the set number and we will pass it. So now we click on the button and nothing's happening. Well, we're not really doing anything once we've added something to a wish list. In fact, it would be a lot nicer if we could tell what was already on our list to begin with every time we search for a set. So let's do that. Back in our Lego list, we still have this useEffect call that grabbed our wish list. But instead of setting it to my Lego sets, because we're already doing that with our search, let's make a new state called wish list sets, and we can set our wish list sets. We'll make that an empty array, and we'll update this. Do you remember early on when I said that every time you run a useEffect, it runs based on whether or not the values in the array that it's passed change? We're about to make use of that. As it turns out, when we originally render this page, we don't have any wish list sets. That happens once this fetch call returns. So we want to listen to these values. And when they change, we want to pass all of the numbers of these sets so that we can check if we already have them on our wish list. So that means we need yet another state. We're going to call it wishlist set nums, and we'll make a setter for that. That'll also be an array. And every time wishlist sets changes, we'll go through wishlist sets and we'll quickly gather all of the sets and just map them to their set numbers because we don't need all the other information. Now we can pass this set, which we want to set, and I almost forgot to do that. Yay, live coding. Now we can pass this set of numbers to our Lego sets, and we'll see why that's helpful in a moment. So inside our Lego set component, we have another prop coming in called wishlist set nums. And inside the set, we want to use another use effect. So every time this renders, each set that creates this component is going to run a use effect, and this function will run. We want it to run every time the wishlist set num changes, and we want it to run a quick comparison to determine whether the current set we're looking at is already in this set of numbers. Basically, is the list that we're looking at already on our wish list? And if it is, that would be good to know. So let's make a variable that can keep track of that for us. Is on wish list. Set is on wish list. We're going to start this as false because we should always render the button assuming that it's there. And then we'll set is on wish list based on whether or not this value exists. Now we can add this nice conditional. Inside React, you have the ability to listen to a positive or negative value and decide whether or not you want to show the component on the screen. So if it's not on the wish list, show the button. If it is on the wish list, don't. This is a really nice yellow squiggly line. This warns us that we broke the rules of use effect. So we need to add set as well. React will make sure that you're not missing any of the dependencies of what you use inside a use effect so that you're not triggering events with stale data or not triggering events with new data. So let's search for light again. Oh, look, all of these buttons that we'd clicked, they were already in our list, but these ones weren't. We can search for other things that I have, like Disney Castle. There's a lot of those. This one's already on my list. Maybe that one should be too. You can start seeing how we've really created the Lego bricks of this application and that we could keep moving and adding new functionality for quite a while. I hope this has given you some really cool ideas about what you can do with building web applications and that you've learned a little bit about JavaScript and React. We went over components, we talked about events, we've talked about hooks, we've looked at how semantic HTML can be used inside of React components, and we've made sure to keep our site accessible along the way. These are all really great best practices and some tools and patterns that you can use to start playing around with things on your own. I wish you the best of luck, and I hope that you've gotten some new tech skills today. Thanks so much.